Welcome to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Dame, holistic nutrition coach and speaker. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. Today is a really special day and episode because we're being joined by a guest that is just so near and dear to my heart. Tracy is here with us today. And Tracy has been such a light and joy in my life for the last, it's been over 2 years now, hasn't it? It was before the pandemic.
I think we're coming up on like exactly 2 years.
Yeah. Yes. So we crossed paths because of my involvement in the Quit Sugar Summit, and Tracy was at a place in her life where I'm going to let her share her story, but things were really at rock bottom for her, and she'd reached out and we hit it off right away. And, we did some really powerful work together, and she continues to inspire and just blow me away with her commitment to her journey to sugar freedom and all the other areas of her life that she's grown and shifted and really healed from the inside out. And you're just such a testament to this whole process that I talk about, Tracy, and everything that, this inner work piece that so many people forget on this journey to breaking up with sugar. So really excited to have Tracy here today and to share her story and to inspire you. You're just going to love everything she has to share. So Tracy, thank you so much for being here with us today and coming on the podcast.
I'm so honored to be here, Danny. You have no idea. You know how much I love talking to you, and I actually love reflecting on my time with you and like it feels like it was so long ago because I've done so much healing since knowing you, and it's fun to just kind of go back and take space to slow down and talk about it.
Yeah, so beautiful. And I know you're actually also doing that in a book. If I can start plugging the teasers, you have a book coming out.
I do have a book coming out, and honestly, it has been the most therapeutic experience of my life because I tell my story in this book, and I'm in the throes of like part 2 of editing. And it's just kind of like pouring out my life as it relates to my struggles with emotional eating and food and sugar. And I'm finally giving myself, as I read my own words, the next level healing.
Wow.
In this whole thing. So it's really been interesting. I'll talk more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely have to dive into that. And, the reason, like I said, everybody listening or watching this on YouTube is the reason I wanted to bring Tracy in here is just to inspire you. I mean, the amount of commitment that you've had to doing the hard work, Tracy, has just been mind blowing. And I know that you have such a mission and message. And I know that shifted compared to what you were doing 2 years ago, which is so beautiful just to see how you can now impact the world. And just sharing these success stories, I think, is really going to be an important part on this podcast. To know that you're not alone, to know that there are others that have been through this, and sharing, I know at the end of this, Tracy, everybody that's listening is going to want to hear your tips and tricks and like, what did you do that worked and what didn't work for you? And through this, like, we really build that sense of community and discovery of not only the fact that we're not alone, but also what are some things that might work for me, right? Like, because what worked for me was probably different than exactly what worked for you, Tracy, and everybody listening as well. So I really want to highlight, more women like you. And I'm so excited that you're here to kick this off, this part of the podcast and these interviews. So let's start with your backstory. I think, you have you've had such a powerful upbringing and history with binge eating and emotional eating and just everything that you've been through. So why don't you share with everybody listening, where this all kind of, how your journey is unfolded, before we started working together?
What's just so interesting with this whole thing is, I've met so many wonderful women in your community, and the more I get to know everyone, like, we really do all have our own unique story. In fact, that's chapter 1 of my book is your food story. And we all have a unique, magnificent story that is so relevant to our journey in life. And I love talking about it because, I actually, every time I get a chance to talk about going far back with my relationship with food, mainly sugar, it almost like it's like another layer of healing for me. So
Mhm.
I will dive as far back as I can remember. I remember just loving sugar so much as a child. And, of course, we all start out with the family celebrations where there's so much abundance, food in general. But, even as early back as like first, second grade, I can remember noticing that I was that kid that was never happy with like just one piece of cake at a birthday party or just a few pieces of candy at Halloween. I was always the one that was wanting more and being told, no, you can't have any more, but like something was going on. So I would sneak and go and get more candy. Or when nobody was looking, I would hack off another piece of birthday cake or snarf down the cupcake that my classmate didn't eat that was left over on her paper plate. And so from an early age, I started to think like, okay, I don't see anybody else doing this. And it was kind of like a family joke. Oh, Tracy, you should see her around sweets, or she has a big sweet tooth, or you need to watch how much sweets you're eating. But I didn't know how to do that. I just knew that I wanted it. And I also started to believe that, like, okay, nobody else has this problem that I have. Like, there's something wrong with me. So I was a very happy go lucky kid. And because I loved sugar so much, my best friend that lived down the road, there were no boundaries with sugar in her house. And she had a cookie drawer with every brand of cookie, and the drawer made a big loud squeak when you opened it. But I figured out how to lift it a little and it didn't squeak. So when I was at her house, when nobody was ever watching or doing anything, and I'm taking all these cookies and hiding in her room, and shame started to build at an early age. Like, I'm sneaking food, I'm sneaky, I'm a liar, I'm a cheat. Like, all that kind of stuff was like, okay, I have to have it. I'm going to do what I need. So you taught me about limiting beliefs. I'm jumping ahead. I look back now on where some of this stuff started with me, the shame.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I started to expand in size by around, like, I
Mhm.
don't know, third grade. And I did not fit into the normal girl's clothing, like in the department stores. That's how old I am. I was born in 1970. So going back to school, moms take you to the department store and you shop for clothes. And I had then like elevated out of the normal clothes and into the pretty plus. They called it pretty plus section of like J.C. Penney's or Sears or something. It was the plus size clothing for girls. And you only had so much to choose from. But I was always this kid, and I wrote about this in my book. I was always that girl that I really didn't give a rat's ass about how I looked, and I got along with everybody, and I had so much fun just being with people. I was loud. I was reprimanded for being loud, and I didn't care. There was something about me that's like, you know what? My mom and I were pretty different, and it was like I was this obnoxious, loving life kind of kid that I used to love getting the kids to laugh when school subjects were really boring, like math and science. I'd be the one doing little things, getting everybody laughing. That was me in the pretty plus clothing, and I didn't care until around fifth grade. When fifth grade started, that is when the prepubescent, the hormones start shifting, and then I started, interest in boys and all that stuff, and I started to care what my body looked like, and I was embarrassed by my pretty plus clothes that I didn't care about in the fourth grade. I was just living large in the principal's office for making people laugh and all that stuff. So I was the class clown, and I was proud of that by the end of fourth grade. But by the beginning of fifth grade, something happened, and I was no longer okay with who I was. I believed then that I was a big mouth and that I was fat. So
Mm. Wow.
that was a tough year for me. I remember that. Like, okay, I still want to be the real me. I still want to be my free spirited big mouth. Life is good. Let's make it good. Let's all laugh. It's therapy, which it is. And I traded that in. Like, she's not good enough. She's not going to fit in. I believed I didn't fit in. And boys can be such jerks, like in fifth, sixth grade.
Oh yeah.
They're just jerks. And like, I can remember the babble was who could fit into the Jordache jeans. And I did end up stuffing my body into Jordache jeans, but I had to cuff the bottoms like 4 times to get them to fit my thighs. You know what I'm saying? So I had these big cuffs, but I wore those Jordache jeans, and that was a segue into me selling out my free-spirited child for the chase of ideology. That is one of the chapters in my book, The Chase for
Wow.
Ideology. So I sold my spirit in the belief for diets. I began dieting. I
Wow.
began dieting at the ginger age of like 12. And that is when like all the diet food started. Like actually, no, it was the processed food, and then like the diet processed food also started. So I remember drinking a ton of Diet Pepsi and going for like the cottage cheese. And it's like, that's all you can
Right.
eat. Hard boiled eggs, saltine crackers, skim milk. It was kind of like I developed the diet mentality. But the worst part of this is I believe that I had to be different. I believe that my body had to be different. And I believe that if I didn't like do this to look like this, I wasn't going to fit in. So I chased that and I tried to be somebody that I wasn't. And here's what happens. So when you diet, and again, I started at 12, when we diet, we actually feed the attitude of the rebel. And as a
Mm.
free spirited child, I had that rebel inside of me, like, you know what? I used to like myself and I understood what was intrinsically great about being alive on planet Earth, right?
Yeah.
And I forgot about that kind of on purpose because I believed I had to look different in order to fit in. And that's created like a rebellious attitude and like I knew better, but I didn't trust myself. Like, no, you know nothing. You need to go over here and create this different body and be totally different in order to be accepted. That was big for me because I was always accepted, but I believed that the way that I was, because of what society was telling us, the Barbie doll, I didn't look like a Barbie doll. I did not look like a Barbie doll.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was chasing that and I really sold out my soul. And, you know, junior high school and high school was really hard for me because I lived a life of restrict and binge. Whether it was, I really didn't do commercial diets, but I thought that if I ate food that didn't taste good and choked down things that didn't taste good, but that were like low calorie, then I was being tough. I was trying and working hard, and I was going to get where I wanted to be, which was some body shape that I believed was this going to deliver this dream to me on a platter. And I really believed that through high school. And I wasn't really good at sports. I tried, and I either made junior varsity or I didn't make it at all. So again, here's all this like my giving it my best effort isn't enough. Now, I could not put that into words when I came to you. I could not say what I just said to you. Like I believed I wasn't enough.
Wow.
I just didn't know what that was. So I just pushed, Danny. Like I just pushed diet binge and kept it in secret. My mom would find all of my hostess was my thing. Hostess wrappers, little Debbie snack cakes, and I would hide the wrappers. And there were a lot of them, you know. And I can remember my closet in high school. I would end up like with two pairs of pants that actually fit me, and I would hide my body, you know, all that stuff. But I need to kind of stop in high school where I said that I wasn't really good at sports and stuff like that. I discovered aerobics classes one day at a local health club. My dad joined a gym. He said, "Oh, come to the gym with me." You know, they got these classes. These women are in there jumping around, and they played '80s music. And there was an instructor there that was not the Barbie doll stick figure, but she was strong. And I watched her move. I joined that class. I was the youngest by far. Jumped around with my leotard and my like that side of me that did not care, but I was going to live it up, came out in that room. And that saved my life. So I started attending these aerobics classes as an escape from, like, it was almost like a good thing for my rebel. Like, it had nothing to do with the kids at school. At night, I would go to these aerobics classes. Nobody knew me, and I jumped around like how I wanted to.
Yeah.
And um, that really, really kind of saved me. I was still binging, dieting, restricting, but my way to escape that pressure was to go to these aerobics classes. So
Mm.
onward to college, I became an instructor, and I worked out really, really hard. Okay, and I was on this schedule to teach all these classes, and the fat-free phenomenon came into play. Everything fat free, fat free. I was able to get rid of some of that pudginess that I had because of the exercise. So I believed, oh, well, you know, I can just out exercise a high carb, high sugar diet, which worked for me for a few years. Moving ahead, I graduate, I get married, I start working in the professional world. I was in real estate at the time. And Gary and I are, we're running, we're running to buy the house and have the 2 kids and run, 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 run. And I started with Weight Watchers. I started with like commercial diets, listening to the girls at the gym. Okay, well, so-and-so's doing this diet. And I was always like, in my head, like the heavier instructor, because then the whole image of like the chiseled body, you had to be chiseled and look a certain way to be respected in fitness. I wasn't necessarily chiseled, but I taught a damn fun class. But it didn't matter to me because I wasn't measuring up to some body image. Therefore, I kept dieting, binging, and it got bad. It got bad. I can remember trying to throw up because a girl that I worked with was bulimic, and she went away and it was like respected. Like she was classified as that, with all due respect to everybody out there with the eating disorder world. I was so confused because I'm just the girl that like pigs out and can't stop. And there's no, you can't call it that. Like there's no classification for that. So the shame built, like I'm not that. So what am I? I just don't have willpower. I have no self-control. There's nowhere for me to go and get help because nobody really talked about emotional binge eating back then. And that's exactly what I was doing. Right. Diet fueled. And so I just thought, this is so insane. I'm envious of the girls that I know, and there was more than one, that were getting treated for eating disorders. And I thought, this is so nuts. But I kept pushing. I kept running that race. And I'm going to jump way ahead here. Okay. So I enter my 40s, my mid 40s, late 40s, and hormones aren't letting me binge so much anymore because my body just can't hold all the sweets. It was always like donuts and candy and little Debbie snack cakes. And when life got really, really messy, I was always going to sugar to stuff and numb and escape, starting the next diet the next day, starting over, writing those goals out. It was insane. So I couldn't binge like I used to, but I was still overeating sugar. I became the healthy baker with the dark chocolate, anything to keep my sweets, anything. And I was still binging on my paleo pumpkin muffins. It didn't even taste that great, but it was that I was drawn to that. So then, once again, I'm going to jump ahead. I'm living that. I'm still teaching fitness and binging, teaching fitness and binging. And I was always like battling the same 10 pounds, 10, 15 pounds when my binging was really getting out of hand. I'd set new goals. And it was just, I was so tired, Danny. I was so tired of this. And I also talked to no one about this because I was ashamed. Nobody else talked about it. And I wore this mask, especially because I'm in fitness. I wore this mask that I have all the answers. I have the best habits. I'm teaching workshops and seminars on clean eating, which I was, but I had my little secret of binging on sugar. I can remember doing a clean eating workshop at a gym. And oh my gosh, I just remember this. On the way home, I went through Dunkin' Donuts, hoping that nobody that was at the seminar could see me in the drive-thru. And I got a small box of donut holes. And what I needed was relief from the pressure that I put on myself, believing that I wasn't enough to be on that stage talking to all these beautiful people that took my advice. I wasn't walking my talk. All those things in my head. All right, so it's 2020, and I was to turn 50 on May 7th, okay? And here we are at the end of December, and all my clothes are fit, and I'm down to like, all my clothes are too tight is what I meant. And I'm down to like these 2 pairs of yoga pants in my closet. Those are the 2 that I wore for like 2 months because I'd start binging at the end of Halloween, October. Couldn't control the chocolate. Then, of course, there's Thanksgiving, and then the sweets were everywhere. And I never had a year where I had a healthy association with holidays. It was always, I would start with dieting intentions to restrict, and I'd end up binging, never having any fun on. By Christmas Day, I was disgustingly bloated and didn't even enjoy Christmas dinner. New Year's Eve, total disaster. And I was exhausted and just so low in my relationship with myself and my opinion of myself. So January 1, without fail, I would write out my goals. So here we are, January 1, 2020. I'm going to be 50 May 7th. My goal was achieve my best self on May 7th when I turn 50. Right. What is that? Well, what is that to me? Oh, I'm going to lose these 10 pounds. I'm going to figure out my eating issue. You know what? In my goals, I would say follow through on my eating plan. The same plan that I would start over with every Monday morning. I just didn't have the willpower. So something was going to be different. I wasn't sure what it was, but now I'm a bit panicked because I'm going to turn 50. That was supposed to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So just like every year, January would go pretty good. And then by Super Bowl Sunday, in the USA, Super Bowl Sunday, I'm kind of like, well, it was getting like, what does that mean? What does that mean? So then I'd start backsliding, start baking again, and I'm following the same patterns of not committing, judging myself for no willpower, and then I would start with like the weekend overindulging and always starting Monday morning feeling disgusting and bloated and all that. Pandemic hits, right? It's March 2020. At that time, I owned my own personal training studio and I'm working my ass off and I'm back to back, back to back. And I started this personal training business. I took it over from a friend and I wasn't sure if I was going to like working alone. I had always worked in community with other trainers and I'm kind of big personality. I'm used to the energy being around a lot of people, but I took this because it was a challenge for me that I was ready for professionally. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but I went anyway. And I was very lonely in the work. I was lonely in the work, and I had to shut down just like everybody else did when pandemic hit. I had to shut down, and I was faced with being just with me, just with me. I have bills to pay. I have a lease. I have all those expenses. What's going on? Am I going to get sick? What does that even mean? What is happening in the world? And everybody on planet Earth that was alive during the start of the pandemic, we all felt panicked. Well, I fell down hard with the return of my massive monster binge eating on sugar. So I've told the story so many times, but it's so true. I would start my day with the best of intentions each day. We're all in lockdown now, and I have a little home gym, little workout area. I'd get my workout in with the best of intentions to stay vigilant. I had my salad for lunch. But then around 3 in the afternoon, something happened. A force would take over, and I would leave my house, and I would go to the local, like the little convenience store, and I would get 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's and give up on myself for the rest of the day. That was dinner. Not 1 pint, Danny. 2,
Wow.
because I learned early on 1 wasn't going to cut it, so it was 2. So I'm sick, I'm bloated, but more than that, I'm scared because this was like just I had time to just be alone with the reality that I have a problem. Like there's something wrong with me. And I forgot to mention, I also had 2 health coaching certifications as a health coach. Remember, I was doing my clean eating seminars on stage with people at a gym, the fitness chick doing the clean eating seminars. And it's kind of like I always believed like I should know better. I should be able to figure out why I'm binging on sugar all the time. But I couldn't. I didn't know that. I didn't know what I was missing. So at that point, I bought a book. That's when I found The Breaking Up with Sugar by Molly Carmel. And I read that book and I discovered like she wrote that. I felt like she was talking to me, like she's talking to me. And so I joined her little community that she had. And she announced one day, first of all, I started doing her work. Okay, I'm going to try this. I don't know if I can really do the sugar thing, but I know it's my problem. I'm going to try. What do I have to lose? And I was very skeptical, and then she said how she was speaking on the Quit Sugar Summit. She was invited to speak on this thing called the Quit Sugar Summit. And I thought, oh my God, what is that? I'm already excited because I found her and I knew that, okay, I'm not alone because I really believed I was because I didn't talk about this. And, it's who talks? It's embarrassing. It's shameful. Like, oh, I'm the girl that just can't control her appetite with sugar. That's really what I believed. So I joined the Quit Sugar Summit and I see you. I see Mike Collins and I see you. And you were the second speaker I listened to because I kept out there recording at that point, I think is what it was. And you just had this like bubbly live energy. And I forget who you were interviewing. And no, I think it was your story. It was your story that I heard. And just the way that you talked, it was like energy. And I just felt this force, like, you need to reach out to her. Like, I need her, like her energy. And there was something about your essence. And I went right, I'm listening to you and I went right on your website. And I noticed that up at the top, you had like book a call. And so I clicked that link and I booked that call with you. And I remember I was at my office at work. I had an office along with my exercise studio. And I was in such a low point. I was so desperate. And I had started Molly's program, like what she said to do in the book, but it wasn't like a structured thing for me quite yet. And I also didn't have direct coaching. And just remember that day I talked to you and I just like lost it. I just lost my shit. And I cried and I cried. And remember, and I was so ashamed at like how I was acting. Like, because I also was taught to push hard and ignore emotions growing up, by the way. Like, feelings and emotions are weak. You need to work as hard as you freaking can to get ahead and to be successful and worthy. So here I am bawling my head off in front of you, and I'm thinking, this girl is going to think I am nuts. And you didn't. You didn't think I was nuts. And you gave me that space. You really did. I mean, what you said to me that day, I was like, wow. It was almost like I was in a new zone. You know, it became clear to me that there are things that I don't know that might be able to help me. So I was in. And then I remember having a few more individual sessions with you. I did your stress, break free from stress eating. Is that what it was? Your stress program.
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
And then I joined your community and I worked one-on-one with you. And I was like the model student. When you sent worksheets, I printed them out. I used my purple pen. I made like an event out of it. And your worksheets were so great because you asked just enough questions. And I would do this in the morning before work when my brain was fresh. And I would do your worksheets and I would also read them again later. I would read them. So I was doing everything that you said and I was beginning to heal. And you taught me things like identity and limiting beliefs. I remember one day you said, there, I hear a limiting belief in there. Could she hear the limiting belief? Oh, I didn't know what the hell that was. I did not know what that voice inside of me was saying to me. Right. And so our meetings that we would have, those meetings with the other ladies on Zoom, I was new to Zoom. I was new to all this. And it was so great to hear everybody else talk about like their shared journeys and their struggles with sugar. So I worked with you and I was journaling every single day. And I made that commitment to myself to journal every single day. You probably told me to do that. But that really kept me going. It was like a history book of healing. You told me things like reward yourself. You said to me one day, Tracy, I want you to go and think about what success means to you. And I couldn't even identify that, which made me work harder at that. So do you know that I still in my journal today, Danny, I write 3 successes I had from yesterday. And
Amazing.
I'm also doing 3 empowering beliefs. That was a
Wow, I
combination
love
between
that.
yeah. Yeah. And so I did break free from sugar. I kept it out. I kept the flour out too. And I felt so much better. Today, I wrote in my journal, ready for this? Day 644.
What? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Ah.
Yeah.
Can I pause you there, Tracy? Just like before
Yeah.
you go into where you're at now and all of the things that you did, I really just want to like take a minute to let that your story sink in, you know, and what you've been through. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably. First of all, you know, I hope that everybody listening and watching is getting inspired by that. I think the way through this healing is number one, knowing that we're not alone, which is, you know, one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on here, Tracy. You know, knowing that you're not alone in this and knowing that like the way through is by opening up and being vulnerable, right? And being willing to reach out. Like you reached out to me, joining other communities with women, whether it's my community or someone else that you follow that can really support you, and just navigating through that. And you said one thing early on, Tracy, as you were just starting to talk about your story that I think I really just want to highlight, because this is what I've noticed. The more clients that I work with, the more conversation, deep conversations I have with women about where our patterns with food and sugar are really coming from. It's that moment where we all, I feel like at some level, just really stop being our authentic selves, right? Like there's some part in all of our lives where we have changed who we were to fit into society, right? And it's a survival technique. Like it's, you know, subconsciously we're trying to stay alive and fit in and make sure that our parents love us and accept us so that we don't die, right? Like it's an actual survival technique, and fitting in our society. Like we have a very very square box that we have to all fit in, and the school system does such a great job in shaping us, right? And I say that sarcastically because what we're doing is just really trying to put all of these shapes and all of these unique personalities and human beings that we are into a square hole, right? Like we're all trying to fit into the same like definition of success, the same definition of what a body should look like, the same, and if you're different than that, that's where the shame starts coming in, just like you identified. And I think this is such an important message to pull out of what you shared, Tracy. So thank you for mentioning that, because this is something we all do. We all have done this. We have all shape-shifted ourselves to try to fit into somebody else's definition of worthiness and success, to be accepted and loved. And we've forgotten who we truly are, right? Like I think you said, you sold yourself, right? You sold your soul, right? You gave up on this bright, abundant, hilarious, goofy, like loud version of yourself because that wasn't acceptable in the school system or maybe in your home or with your groups of friends. So, this is a lot of this work, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is like taking down those masks, right? Taking off all those masks and beginning to reconnect with your true authentic self, right? This fun, loud, awesome person. I'm the same, Tracy. A lot of your story resonates with me as, I was always told to be quiet. Danny, you're too loud. You're too sensitive. You're too, right? Like all the two statements. Like I just want to say some very choice words about that right now. But, it's like, how can we honor those pieces in ourselves and love that we're unique and weird and crazy and clumsy and like all these traits, right? And really own that true identity, right? And that's when you talk about identity, or you mentioned that's really where that comes from. So yeah, really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that moment when you noticed that happen. And I think that's such an important teaching lesson here, which is why I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about that. And I'm so grateful that you did reach out, and I commend you. I know so many people listening, you might know that you need support. You're not sure the way out. You've given up on yourself, and it's just such a beautiful testament that at any age, right, you can do this work and just don't give up on yourself, right? Just like you didn't, Tracy. You're like, I know there's a way out of this. I know there's something in my soul. There's something here, right? There's something that I can and want to change for my life, because I don't want to live life like this anymore. Like this isn't life. This is not joy. This is not freedom. And you took the steps to really do that. And yes, we did some powerful work together, but you did all the hard work. So I want to point that out. Like that's all on you, and you should be so proud. And I know you are, because you've learned how to be proud and celebrate yourself, which is so beautiful to see. And yeah, it's just been incredible. So continue where you were, chatting here. I think you were about to share like what shifted for you, maybe, yeah, starting back at like when we started working together and you came and did my Break Free from Sugar group program, and started meeting these other women, started, doing the worksheets before work, and started to have these aha moments, these huge breakthroughs and shifts. What was that whole journey like, the first 6 months, that we were working together? And then after that, you've been flying on your own over the last year, you're still part of my community, but, you've been continuing to do this beautiful inner work. So I'm sure everybody would love to know, like, what are you doing? What are all the pieces that have kind of gone into that, and what are you still doing?
Well, when I came to you, I was at such a low point during pandemic with the ice cream and everything. Remember when I met with you and talked to you, that I didn't know the tools that you gave me. Like you showed me, like did the whole teach a man to fish? I think is that something, teach a man to fish? Okay. Well, you taught me to fish, and as soon as I caught wind of that side of me, that free spirited, like hardworking, I was able to channel that part of my personality that for my greater good. I started to, when you taught me, you said things like sit with your feelings, allow it to process. In your community, you would share your bad days.
Mm-hmm.
So here's someone who to me is such an uber leader, and her mask is like off. Her mask is off, and she's explaining this crappy day that she had with this challenge with her house, all that stuff going on personal with you. And then you gave me an example of, you know what? Yeah, it was just like this rainbow appeared. Wow, like other people's lives are also filled with challenges, and they adapt and adjust, and I can too. because I lived in
Yeah.
this world where I would look at other people, and I, in my head, would think, "Oh, they're so successful. They have all the answers. They don't have problems. They don't have challenges." That's so not true. That's just so not true. And so, you sharing your authentic self gave me the green light to take back to go and find that fourth grader that was such a badass and so much fun and so here it is, unapologetically her and confident and secure. I went back and got her. That's why I was bawling my head off at the inner child ceremony, which is a whole nother story, by the way. Danny does this wonderful inner child ceremony, and I was not prepared for the emotions they came. But you know why I didn't describe that night? Because I couldn't. I was crying so hard. I could not. I couldn't describe that because I was already in that mode. And it felt great. I was exhausted by the end of that, but it was wonderful. Anyway, I rescued her, and she said to me, "It's time to go do our thing." So it's like, I, it's just unbelievable. So you gave me the space and you showed me that I can go towards that path of freedom that I didn't know was waiting for me. And you also taught me, and I needed this coming from a diet mentality. I did badass my way through hundreds of days of no sugar, but you also taught me how to, you know what, Tracy, you're going to figure out where sugar, if sugar belongs in your life. And I have done that. And now I can honestly say that I have achieved what I've always wanted since a little girl with sugar. And it's this, because I've done the inner work, I'm taking your words, I am now that grown woman that can have legitimately a couple of bites if I happen to want the birthday cake and be like, gosh, wow, that's enough. Because first of all, I physically cleansed and I emotionally and spiritually cleansed as well. So that cake, if I choose to have it, number one, I have the power to decide, do I really want it? Because I'm not using it to escape anything anymore. If I choose to eat it, I'm savoring it now. I could never have described that before. I was always using that cake to numb something, escape something. Now, if I choose to have a couple of bites of cake, number one, it better be really high quality cake or very meaningful, made by my daughter, or I don't want it. I don't want the Walmart cake. Like, what is that? I used to binge on that stuff for different reasons. Now I know where sugar fits in my life. By the way, I'm 15 pounds lighter than I was when I began working with you because I didn't care. I never weighed myself. I don't weigh myself.
Yeah.
It's not a measure of my success anymore. It's
Yeah.
just
And
not.
that was never a part of our conversations, right? I remember that. Like,
Yeah.
you came to me, I was very clear, like, this is not a weight loss. Like, that's not the main goal. Like, you really came in knowing, like, this is so much deeper than just what's on the outside, right? And this understanding of, when we balance our insides, our outsides reflect that, right? So that's just usually one of the happy byproducts, of course, of getting off of sugar, right? And among all the other things, but this internal strength that you developed and resiliency and just reconnection with yourself, is what made that difference for you.
Speaking of that, what you just said, it's like it's a byproduct of making, I guess, commitments to yourself to go inward in our relationship with food and emotions and people that are struggling with emotional eating, which, by the way, I think is a huge problem that doesn't get enough attention. It's just huge, okay? And when I rescued my fourth grader and now we're ready to do something big, I was also able to get real with myself that I really wanted to end my career in fitness and just have fitness. I mean, I teach the classes that I want to teach, and I do that for my therapy, for being around people, and the exercise formats that I love. It's different now, but I walked away from it as a form of this is what I do for work, because now my spirit has indicated to me, because I've given her a voice and given her space, along with the fourth grade badass that said, you know what? We need to take a stand on helping women break free from the toxicity of dieting and all of those problems, right along with this scale. Okay, there are so many women out there that still give their power away to that piece of metal, and it's just there's something that needs to shift there. When I took my power away from the scale and gave my power into my journaling, things like feelings, empowering beliefs, gratitudes, food is still in there, but it's not like a cup of oatmeal, a teaspoon of no. I just write generally. And it's at the bottom of the page of the journal. My emotional stuff is at the top, so I can check in and be aware, mindful awareness, connecting with spirit. That's first. And then it's no problem to manage the food, So anyway, I decided to end my personal training business. But before I ended that, I signed on with a publishing company to write my first book, and it's called The Diet Free Diva. Now, what I mean by the Diet Free Diva is I mean that once we do the inner work to break free from what we're telling ourselves as it relates to food and sugar and all those things, when we do the healing and I give a 5-step process of how to do that, the big rainbow at the end is we connect with that badass spirit that we have to then pursue work that we were meant to do in this world. And by the way, I discovered my purpose in this world is not to recover from the diet binge cycle. That is not my purpose for being alive on planet Earth. I have big things to do to help other people. And when I had that epiphany and I had mental clarity with the sugar being gone and all that, like, is this all I was meant to do in my life, is to recover from another binge associated with a diet? No. So I am here and I'll tell you, I am scared with this book because it's a little edgy, but that's me. That's my 4th grade me. I am a little edgy, but I get along with people. I can't be like Little Miss Manners because that's not me. So the book is pretty straightforward. I'm having a great time breaking through. Well, it's not easy, but breaking through what I want to say and how I want to say it. But I'm really on a mission, and I can't wait to see where this goes. But I never would have landed here had I not, finally like put my ego in the backyard and said, I want some of Danny's energy. And folks that are listening here, I get nothing out of doing this. I mean, Danny and I are literally having a conversation, and I mean, this is so completely authentic. Had I not met you and just gotten a taste, when you say love and light at the end of your emails, like you're not bullshitting. I mean, can I even say that?
It's not a lie.
That's true. That really is. When I hear your voice, it's just like, oh, yep, I remember what she ignited inside of me. And I believe in that energetic connection and how we're brought together with people. So I will be forever a member and a supporter and a fan. And I love seeing you expand and grow with your mission, because you really tell it like it is, and you give us the right stepping stones to reconnect with who we are. Because I think the food industry, and that's another whole topic, it can be, it's very tricky, and escaping with food is no way to live. So if I can help other people just like you break free from the toxicity of using food to escape on any level, then I'll feel like my life has massive purpose. Because I think a lot of people are really stuck, like I was, for 50 years. 50 years. No more. I'll be 52 in May.
Yeah. Yes. Coming up soon. Wow. Yeah. And I remember that, Tracy. I remember, and I'm so glad that you mentioned this as kind of where you are now, right? In your journey and making this huge shift. Like, I remember our coaching calls. I remember having those conversations with you really when you were coming to the idea of, wow, I'm actually not in alignment with my work. Like, this is actually the main source of my stress and anxiety. Like, what is going on? Like, I remember you having those light bulb moments together. And then obviously through time, letting that percolate. I mean, it's not easy to just uproot your life like that. I mean, I've done that, right? Just quit my job and left. Like, sometimes these huge leaps of faith are just so beautiful when we really, exactly like you said, when we really start connecting with who we truly are, it becomes really apparent when we're out of alignment in our lives, right? And for a lot of people, that might be your relationships, it might be your job. I know for me, it was a lot of friendships that I said goodbye to and let go of, relationships, different areas of our life. We really start to see them in a different way. And I'm hoping a lot of people have had that sort of awakening experience through the pandemic. Like you mentioned, you're a pandemic success story. When everybody else was turning to emotional eating for all the craziness, here you are recommitting to that and getting the support that you needed to not go down that rabbit hole and instead come out of this pandemic like just so vibrant and strong and now in alignment with this incredible mission, which as a side note, just makes me so so proud and so filled with joy to know that like our work together has now sparked that for you to now go and have, like, I know without a shadow of a doubt you have such a huge mission and purpose here in having these conversations with women, and exactly what you've been through, because your experience through the dieting is very different than mine. I didn't have that same roller coaster experience of the diet industry. And I mean, we were born in different eras as well, which makes a difference. So it's going to be so beautiful. I cannot wait for your book to come out and to just continue supporting you and watching this unfold as you start to work with other women and support in this way. It's you're incredible. You're incredible. And I'm so grateful for you sharing your story here today. And, just as we wrap things up, would love, as a last question to you, I'm thinking of everybody listening and watching, what they want to know from you. Obviously, they probably have a million questions, and I'm sure you can reach out to Tracy. But what would you say, would you be your biggest pieces of either advice or tips for women who are really resonating to your story right now and wanting to go on this journey, but are terrified, oh my goodness, this inner work stuff sounds painful and difficult, and crying, I don't want to cry. What are your tips to, anybody who's in that space right now that is thinking about, diving in and getting some support and doing this work?
As you asked that question, do you know what just came so glaringly clear as my answer is what really did it for me? And that is, my answer to your question is get support. Mm-hmm. Because I hid trying to fix myself and my problem that I had with binge eating and sugar by myself, because I was so embarrassed and I was so shameful. Now, yes, I'm a little more extroverted than I am introverted, but when it came to my sugar binging, I was never going to tell anybody. I was so ashamed and so embarrassed. So I'm just here to tell you that I kind of feel like I took off all my clothes when I met you. Like, help me, I'm vulnerable. So when I learned how to get out of my own way and find a community of other people that also shared this with me, that was really the segue for healing. So joining the community, and you remember in your meetings, I was just like Babble Monster when I made friends and discovered other people are dealing with this, and it just made so many emotional deposits to me and through my healing. So the answer to your question is seek support and find that community of women. I could be men too. I just like to stay with the girls, where you just might discover, like I did, the tools that you didn't know that you didn't know that you were missing. Keep trying. I was fighting the food. I didn't know that it was, even when I signed up to work with you, I'm like, okay, what's she going to tell me? I still thought it was about the food. I didn't know you were going to have a meeting with me one day and say, Tracy, I think you're out of alignment with what you're doing. Like little things like,
what?
I am out of alignment. What is that? I'm out of alignment. Stuff like that. Like, you brought things, and you didn't know me from the man on the moon, but just our conversations. And that was another helpful thing. You were completely unbiased and impartial. You were not one of my clients. You were not anybody in my community. And I could really get raw with what was going on in my life. And I needed that space. So community and trust in somebody else that can give you that vulnerable, trusted space to talk and to let this out. And there's so many other things I didn't discuss, roots and old pains and, some traumas, emotional traumas, or we'd be on here for another 2 hours, but we all have it. We all have it. It need not be minimized, but the community is really what pulled me into my healing and where I'm at today in my life.
Yeah, it's so powerful, so beautiful. That's a message I share so much as well. In all areas of my life that I've struggled and grown, like, it wasn't until I actually found community that everything changed, right? Even with being healthy, right? Like, I changed my friends. It was like people who were not healthy and didn't want to go hiking or, eat healthy at potlucks and wanted to just sit around and eat pizza. Like, I kind of made a big switch on that. Like, I want to be around people who actually want to nourish their bodies. And, it's so amazing who we hang out with and the amount of, like, the importance that has. I don't believe that we're meant to do things on our own, right? We're not we're social creatures. Like it takes a village, right? We're not meant, and somehow we've put ourselves, especially as women, I feel like on this pedestal. Like if we do everything ourselves and struggle on our own, we must be awesome. Like we kind of put ourselves on this pedestal. Like that's a virtue to like struggle on your own and beat yourself up and never get anywhere. And it boggles my mind because that's not the definition of strength. So for any of you who are telling yourself that, it's like, I'm calling you out on it lovingly, you're actually being very counterproductive, and struggling on your own. But we're all, I believe in the divine timing and that we were meant to meet, Tracy, too. And everybody listening, it's all, your timing will come. When you're ready, right? And really just being open to paying attention to that is so beautiful, and following those intuitive hits. Like, okay, now's the time. I got to reach out to someone. I need to join a community, or, I need to reach out to Danny and come and do her next program. Like whatever that is, really just listen to those whispers like you did, Tracy, and so beautifully. Just, I know we could talk for hours. I have so many more questions for you and we'll definitely have to have you back on the podcast. Especially around your book launch, we'll definitely get you on for that to help promote the book. Yeah. Are there any last words of wisdom or thoughts that you have for everybody listening that you want to share today?
I think there's really one more thing that I would like to say. And I always equate this to like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. That, Dorothy and all the characters, they thought the wizard had all the answers. So it's kind of like, the wizard has all of my answers. And the Wicked Witch is just talking to her, and she's saying all these terrible things. That's a voice in her head, and the Wicked Witch. And then she meets Glenda, the beautiful witch, that says, Dorothy, you have all the power inside of you. And we do. It just starts with the belief and then getting support to help us find that. So that means that you're that witch. You're Glenda, Danny.
Okay, that's my other name. I didn't know. Start calling me Glenda.
You need the sparkly pink dress and the wand. You could be that for Halloween. Isn't that great?
I'm on it. I'm on it. She was blonde too, wasn't she? I think.
And very curly with the crown on top. That's you.
Yeah, the curls will be a problem.
Yeah. Well, we can do it. Hot rollers.
Okay.
No, the things that come up when we talk, like where did that come from?
I love it.
Anyway,
I love it.
We have the answers inside, and we need support, community, and someone to help us find those power. That's exactly what you freaking did for me. That's exactly what you did for me by asking me the right questions, and I was in and open because I was like, what do I have to lose? But you showed me that. Yeah. And it feels good.
And you took it. Yeah, you took it and ran with it. It was so beautiful. You were definitely, a star student, right? And actually following through and doing the homework and like putting these things into practice. Because as you know, and everyone listening, a big part of every change and journey in our life is getting out of the information only mode, right? And getting into the actual application mode. I mean, that's where transformation happens. So many people have spent their lives just absorbing podcasts, right? Or watching documentaries and reading book after book after book and never actually doing the action items in the book, right? Never actually applying it in your life. And, that's a huge piece of what I do is really, getting people like you and what you did, Tracy, is actually, okay, this is what we learned this week. Now I'm going to go do it. And that's how you started noticing those shifts so quickly and how you've been able to maintain such incredible success. I mean, it's almost been 2 years and you're just lighter and brighter than ever. And every time that we talk, I can see you becoming more in tune and more authentic and more empowered in yourself and your body. So huge congratulations to everything that you've done and everything you put in. I cannot wait to read your book. And like I said, continue supporting you with this. We'll definitely have you back on to talk more about the book when it comes out. And I can't thank you enough for being here, Tracy. This has been fantastic.
Well, thank you for being my star teacher. I've never been called a star student in my life, which is really funny because I didn't like school, but you are the star teacher. So here we go. How sappy do we sound?
Oh my gosh. We better end it now before everybody starts getting sick from our sap.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Tracy. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into this really special episode. We'll definitely be highlighting and sharing more success stories, on the podcast here. And this is just the start. And thank you again, Tracy. This was amazing. We'll see you all on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you're loving what we talked about today, please remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone you love. And if you're ready to dive deeper into discovering your root causes and patterns that are keeping you hooked on sugar, be sure to check out our brand new free workshop series that will help you kick emotional eating for good. Find the link to download this free series and other amazing resources in the show notes below.